Hello and welcome to the first ever episode of the show that will be named by my first ever guest. This is a conversational space where we explore the intersection of art, business and life with some of the world's leading entrepreneurial, intellectual and creative minds. My first guest is a dear friend of mine. When I first chanced upon his work, I was as inspired as I was reaffirmed to continue to be radical in my approach and my execution. He is the best-selling author of the international smash hit, The Business Romantic. He is a 3-time TED speaker and strategy artist for the world's leading brands. A dear friend, it is my pleasure and privilege to introduce Tim Leberecht. How are you, my man?
Good. Great to be here.
Great to have you
Thank
back in Melbourne.
Yeah. It's lovely to be back, despite the weather.
Now, I gave you a little tip before. This is not an interview, it's a conversation. And yet I thought I would let you in on the first question I would ask you, which was, Tim, if there was a question that you would love to be asked but are never asked, what would that be?
Not that question, because
Yeah.
I really struggle with that. I'm not sure what question that would be. And when you asked me that before, I think my answer was eventually, there isn't such question. So I think it's more a question of, so I would want my father to ask me a simple question like, are you happy? How are you? Or I also like questions that start with, did you ever? I think that's always a good question. Did you ever consider becoming a pilot? Did you ever visit India? Did you ever, think about that? So I think it's more the question in a certain context than it is like, a specific question.
Well, did you ever see yourself
Becoming a pilot?
being the custodian of what I believe to be a very beautiful movement that is emerging, that you are championing, called beautiful business? Did you ever see that you would be where you are today?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Always.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
Like
love
you
that.
too, right?
Yeah,
You're part of the movement as well.
Yeah.
And no, I think so. I think in a strange way we go back to all the dreams and the crazy stuff that we were envisioning when we were 12, 14. So I created magazines and made movies.
Amazing.
And fake movies. I had a fake team and I was, I had even fake corporations. I ran my own company when I was 14. It was like a fake company. So I always loved the ability to design something, to be entrepreneurial, but it needed to be beautiful. I always wanted it to have an artistic touch. So it just took me a long time to be able to articulate that and then actually live up to it. It took me like 20 years to finally get to that point. And I'm not even sure if I'm fully there, but at least we can talk about it.
Exactly. Well, tell me more about what is beautiful business and why do we need it?
Oh, beauty. That's a tough question. I think beauty can save the world, right?
Yeah.
Dostoevsky, I think, said. And gosh, we need more beauty in this world, probably more than ever before. And to me, the place to start is business, because it's just so pervasive. We spend so much time there, and it has such influence. And it decides where we allocate our assets, our resources. So it is so powerful. And yet, we have divorced large parts of our humanity from it. The ability to dream, everything that's, the artistic stuff, right? The beautiful moments that are beautiful because you didn't expect them to happen, because they're coming from the edge, they're coming from outside of your comfort zone, from your domain. And we need to let that back in. Not only because it will make us happier, more fulfilled, but also because I think it's good for business. And that has to do with...
How?
Well, because I think relying on efficiency only is not going to be enough anymore, because that will be done by machines, by artificial intelligence. Efficiency, I think, is exhausted as a paradigm. And in the future, I think the human work that will need to be done needs to be done beautifully, because doing work beautifully is something that AI and machines can do. They might be able to produce beauty. They can now paint images and even write music and stuff like that. You could argue whether or not it's beautiful, but doing things beautifully with intention and care and love and passion, right? The invisible stuff, that is something I think that will remain a human domain, and I would love to see that flourish in business. I think it'll be better for businesses and for society overall. Man, that was a long answer. I'm sorry. What do you think?
No. That's a beautiful.
Yeah.
I remember many years ago, a friend of mine told me a story about there's a drum machine called a 909. There's an 808 and a 909, and it's anything hip hop or anything dance music has been created on that. And nowadays they sample those sounds and then put them in a laptop and produce music that way. I've looked for this article, I've looked for this study, this interview for 8 years. I just can't seem to find it, but he said he read about it. And there was the New York Ballet, and they ran a test with an old analog drum machine that is still artificial, you could say, but it's got the grit, it's got the rawness, you could say it's a more human drum machine. And then they got them to dance to that. And then they got them to dance to a laptop with exactly the same beat, exactly the same rhythm, exactly the same everything, but done by a laptop. So MIDI clock, very precise. To the naked ear, you couldn't really tell what was different. And yet when they interviewed all of them afterwards, they didn't know which was which. So they said which one felt better. And they all said the old analog machine. Like all said it.
Yeah.
Like vinyl sounds and feels different to an MP3 or a streaming and all this kind of stuff. So I love that we can't explain it.
I wonder though if that's because that's how we're conditioned, right? We're used to that. It just feels more like home. It's more like this nostalgic longing for the sound of vinyl. But that might change, and I think there's probably going to be some new form of beauty that will emerge in the collision of the cooperation between AI and human creativity. So I think that's fascinating as well. I was in Lisbon a few weeks ago, and I was invited to a fado house, and I met this couple, and they explained fado to me, which is very Portuguese folklore, this song art, and they were saying that fado is one of the few pieces of genres of music that cannot be replicated or automated because it's full of mistakes.
I love that.
There's no drums, right? There's no metronome.
Yeah.
It's sort of stumbling forward.
A little like this?
It's like this.
Yeah.
And that will probably always remain, sort of a refuge of beauty in a sense, because we don't quite fully understand it.
I think about when, there are now computers that are writing music, and painting and doing all of that stuff, and you can get sound programs, going back to music again and thinking about the quality and the clarity of the audio samples is phenomenal, and yet I just spent a small fortune on 2 vintage keyboards from a guy that lives in Perth on the other side of Australia, because the feel, the touch of it, it is worth me trusting some random guy I've never met who's going to pick them up from this guy's house that I've never met and is somehow going to deliver them to my door, and that it won't fit in my house. And I won't really be able to use them for a year until I move into our next place, but I've got them. And it just, there's something that I can't explain to anyone except probably other vintage keyboard enthusiasts, that it just makes me feel better knowing that they're still around and that I don't know, I don't want to lose that. I think that is profoundly beautiful.
It is, but don't you think that there's an opportunity also for, say, Alexa or virtual assistants, digital assistants to produce that kind of beauty? I mean, can we have a relationship, that kind of attachment, sentimental attachment you described?
Yep.
Might we be able to have that with Alexa or a digital assistant?
Absolutely.
I mean, there will be a new form of attachment that will emerge, right? It's not the same as the one you have with a vintage piano, but there might be new properties that are emerging.
I agree.
I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah.
And I actually, 2 years ago when I wrote the book, The Business Romantic, I think I was a bit more nostalgic. I wasn't anti-technology, but I was more skeptical. And I still am critical, but now I'm more and more, I think I'm just realizing, like, wow, this is, it's inevitable, it's going to happen. I think hopefully we can shape it to some degree. And there is, I think the fascinating thing is that what drives me is like, how can we find beauty in it?
Exactly.
Where's the beauty in that?
Yeah.
And who's going to produce that? And how are we going to uncover the beauty in that interplay with, the machines of the future?
We talked about that last night, I think, over dinner. It's the tension of what's coming. You can't keep that back. There's no way to stop the flow. The dam has broken. But how do we create, invent a new relationship with beauty, with machines, AI, with the whole thing?
Well, beauty and love, right? I mean, everybody wants beauty. everybody wants beauty. It's like one of these terms. Just when you say the word, and people are just touched in a different.
I had a conversation with a guy. I got my first facial.
It was about time.
Yeah, about
I had one in my life.
a month ago. A guy named George, beautiful guy. He would tell me these stories of Chanel and all these socialites in Paris in the 20s, and I can't remember the exact term, but he said, I think it was Chanel or Dior or someone that was like, well, the opposite of luxury is not poor, it's ugly. So it's thinking, well, it's almost a conversation around luxury. It's not necessarily around exclusivity or high quality. It's almost around honoring the value of something and being willing to allow yourself, I don't know, spend money. I can't quite remember it, but it.
So do you think that beauty should be a luxurious item? So, because that sort of inscribes more value in it, and it should be ubiquitous so that it retains its value?
Yeah, it's a beautiful question.
And we're I think we're going a bit too philosophical. Let's talk about
sure.
What should we talk about?
It's probably the
Let's
music.
talk about I think so too. Can you switch to some? Yeah, exactly.
Let's bring it back to business then. So how do we bring beauty to business, particularly when we're still, doesn't matter who you are, we need to make money.
Yeah.
We need people to buy our stuff. We need to pay our mortgages. And when the hits the fan, why would I choose beauty over efficiency or productivity?
What's the one thing that artists, sort of the artistic ethos contains that no one else can claim? To do things, not for money, basically, just do them for art. Right?
Yeah.
I think that's
For the love.
one for the love. That's the one major sort of differentiator of artists, and I think where the beauty of art and beauty probably emanates from. So applying that to business means, I think, as long as business maintains the freedom to do things that are not necessary. Like if everything is driven by efficiency and by the bottom line, well, then chances are, ultimately you'll drive all the beauty out of it. But as long as there's waste, in other words, like human activity and culture, because that is wasteful, in a sense, and time for waste and time to experience, and not just brutal efficiency. I think then there's a chance for beauty. But I think that's the first mindset change to say, all right, yeah, we could generate 20% margins, fine, but that would mean pretty much like everybody would be miserable. Everyone would be miserable, or at least a certain stakeholder group would be miserable. It's at the cost of something else. Maybe the price is that we sacrifice our culture, or our values, or our morality, or one of the stakeholder groups. So I think you have to make a deliberate decision to say, well, 10% is fair enough.
Yeah.
But on the upside is that we live a happy life and we have beauty and we like coming into our office every morning and we have good relationships with our colleagues.
But how do you get people to that point?
It's either hurt, so people were hurt and they're in a crisis and they feel burned out and they're at a point where they realize I have to change because I'm basically exploiting myself, my organization, my family. So it's really coming from a place of crisis, or they've seen the light. I think it's either shock or awe, right? Fear or awe, or they come from a place, and maybe that's also I think something that artists can do. It's just to inspire and show them what it could be, what the world might look like, and then they like light up and see sort of an alternative, a different world that is possible. I think it's both.
So you're in a boardroom. There's a fluorescent light. There's mints in the middle of the table. There's the water. There's all the stakeholders. There's a bit of tension. You want nothing more than to have a conversation about beauty. And there are very real constraints. There's people's jobs on the line. There's money. There's all of that stuff going on. How do you have them understand or experience beauty in the way that they would perhaps if they were at a film or they were at a concert or they were at the theatre. How do you get them to feel it rather than just being words that you might be speaking, so that they're sitting there in this boardroom and they have a visceral emotive experience like he might be onto something. Maybe we do take 10% over 20. Maybe we do need to rethink our strategy. How do you do that? Because a lot of people, the reason I ask, they feel this, they see that what's coming, they want this, but they might not have a grand piano in their office. They might not have, a dance troupe that are following them with streamers. How do they cut through and hit the mark in the people that they know also want beauty but just don't know how to find it yet?
I think it's interesting because I'm really torn. On the one hand, I think it needs to be a mix. It's probably the German in me to be somewhat balanced. You need to have some rational arguments, like what's the upside of having a purpose and beauty, and then some emotional experiences that are quite radical.
Yeah.
What I love about you is that you're not afraid to be radical and to say, well, I'm going to go all in and I'm going to give you an emotional experience that you never had before. And I don't care about, sort of the benefit conversation. And I admire that. And I think that might be the better approach.
Yeah.
So what I've done is, what I've seen work is always I do a lot of dinner conversations. I think dinners are a wonderful format.
Yes.
People call it icebreaker, which sort of almost like trivializes it, but it really gets the best out of people, makes them vulnerable. It's always great to have a dinner in a special setting and then ritualize it and orchestrate it very carefully. I had executives write love letters.
Yeah, great.
About each other's, one another's job.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Why do I love my work?
It's
all about helping them understand why their work is meaningful.
Yeah.
And I think it could be love letters. It could be something like the CEO of Cirque du Soleil did, who had a clown mimic himself in meetings, sort of just copying his moves, which was great because it just added context and deconstructed the whole power dynamics in a sense. So it's all about it's only through vulnerability. It's these moments where they're not like shamed, but moments where they are exposed and where they're suddenly sort of deconstructed in a gentle, loving way. I know it's easier said than done, but I think it's these small little hacks that I think you're using as well.
That's beautiful.
I mean, what do you think? Like, do you think there's a need for an engineering, like a manufacturing, like a mining company? I mean, does that stuff work? Or do you think you still need the facts and the data? And,
I think you need both. Absolutely need both. Yeah, but I do think we're starved of the former. I think that meaning. You got me think when you said, once someone can find a meaning, like the love letters of the CEO. That's just such a pivotal piece in this. And I think about art. When someone creates a piece of art, the real meaning, there's a relationship between the artist and the artwork, but then there's also the relationship between the consumer of the art, the audience, the listener, that takes on a whole new meaning. So maybe beauty is, beauty circles around meaning for sure. And your relationship with beauty is probably very dependent on what it means to you.
Yeah, and it's beautiful too. I mean, I perfectly understand the satisfaction entrepreneurs get from growing a business. It's beautiful, right? To have 12 people and then 25, and then have conflict, and then have the first retreat with 100.
Yeah.
And have that responsibility, but also the ability to play. Like you can always play. It's like an orchestra.
Yeah.
And to perform at scale. And I mean, there's beauty in that too. Like just in the impact.
Yeah.
That's what I personally find so beautiful about business. It's just this playing field.
It is. Yeah. It's a limitless palette.
Yeah.
And you're both witnessing and creating the colors with the relationships with others and with your own imagination. It's a gorgeous opportunity. Yeah, I love the idea of beautiful business. I love the idea of artistry in business, and I love the idea of continuing this conversation with you, Tim.
But
we
ran. Are we coming to an end already?
Maybe. We'll keep it short and sweet.
Yeah, it just feels like a long conversation already. Covered so much ground.
Yeah.
No, it's great to be here. I love that. I think it's amazing how this piano is just putting you at ease.
Haha, good,
Doesn't
good.
it? Yeah.
I should mention that in 8 months, we're going to make some more magic together.
Yeah. Oh, I'm looking forward to that.
Now,
Shall we talk about it?
Yeah,
or?
in 2 months, you're doing something special in Lisbon. You want
Yeah.
to talk about that?
Yeah. So we're organizing our what we call the House of Beautiful Business.
I love that.
And it's really like business coming home. Like we want to create an environment where people feel at home, meet other people they may not meet at a typical conference, to craft an optimistic, positive vision for the future of work. You know, amidst all the doom and gloom and AI and automations. Like, and we're bringing in poets, philosophers, engineers, designers, CEOs, and it's not a conference. It's just them living together, working together, performing. We'll have some fado in Portugal, and we're going to do the next edition basically in Melbourne.
Yeah, it's going international.
It's going international. We'll do it in 8 months from now here in Melbourne, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And
We need to find a big, beautiful home for the House of Beautiful Business. I love what really inspires me about this idea is a pop-up community, a pop-up home of people that are united not necessarily on their industry or on their interests or even on their experience or where they sit in terms of a hierarchy. It really is, it's inclusive for anyone interested in not just enjoying or being a part of, but co-creating a new story for what business could look like in the future.
you know what was beautiful? So I sent out an email to my network and said the House of Beautiful Business is going to take place in Lisbon. Get a free pass. The only assignment is you have to answer the question, what makes business beautiful? And then I got so many emails like never before. And what was really beautiful about it was that there were several people who said, I'm so sorry I can't make it to Lisbon, but I'm going to answer your question anyway.
Great.
Because it's been on my mind. And I got essays back.
Yeah.
One woman even sent me a chart, like a whole framework.
I love that.
You know?
I love that.
I mean, just
That's
amazing.
the right time.
And I think it's, so it's also like, we have a responsibility now to honor that, you know?
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Passion,
Yeah, it's in safe hands. My friend, thank you so much for joining us. Now, before we end, what is the name that you would like to give to this, not just episode, but this entire show? I'm going to give you the rights to name this series.
I thought Cool Jamming with Mykel. No, the amazing name I came up with is I like notes from the bottom line. We talked about the bottom line. There are some notes, and I like the tension of notes. Bottom line.
Thank you so much for joining me, my friend.
Thank you. Pleasure.
We'll see you on the next episode of Notes from the Bottom Line. Done.
Awesome.
Yeah,
That's great.
I think so.